There you go. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We need a motion for approval of the agenda. Before we do that, we'd like to move item number 8, which is resolution 622, to accept the donation of medical equipment for the Polk County Sheriff's Office. You want to move that right in behind number 5 and public comment.
I'll make a motion to make that adjustment and approve the agenda.
Perfect. Minutes.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the January 13th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 13th meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Disclosure of any committee member conflicts of interest regarding matters noticed on the agenda. We'll probably handle those as they arise. So if something jumps up, please ask to be recognized. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? We have no public comment. We'll move right to item number 8. Resolution number 622. Resolution accepting the donation of medical equipment for the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Walk.
Well, thank you for moving us up. We have to testify in this hour here, John and I, so I appreciate that. So we had a fantastic donation opportunity here, and I would like to give credit where credit is due. Our supervisor in dispatch, Jill Stoffel, has worked with the Franzen Bank and also the Lakes Area Ambulance. And they are donating defibrillators to give to every squad car we have. And not just the patrol squad cars, but even like Don and I's admin cars, we are now going to be driving around with AEDs in the car. So this has such a life-changing impact in the community for us to be out there. We, through the years, have had numerous times when deputies just have to be in the right place at the right time where they've administered CPR. This is just another tool to make it even more efficient and will be life-changing. So it's a tremendous opportunity. We are planning a nice photo op if this passes at the full board, which I anticipate it will, with the Franzen Bank and Trust and also Lakes Area Ambulance here in Wendell, who's worked really hard on this with us. And they are going to also provide training to us. And they're working that out separately through Lakes Area with Franzen Bank. But they're going to train all our deputies on the use of these AEDs as well. I anticipate we're going to have enough that we can even have one in the patrol boat this summer when we're out on the water. So it's just a great opportunity, and I would ask for your support on this resolution.
Make a motion to approve this resolution.
Seconded.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you guys very much for doing that.
Awesome. Number 6. Receipt of information from supervisors not seated as committee members. Okay, number 7, review of the government center update bids for recommendation to the county board.
Yes, we have Ann Porter from LHB here, who was the
And
person.
she's smiling. They must have come under budget.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
my
can
look
tell.
would have been a
Yeah,
lot different.
He would have been
You've
zoomed
obviously been
in
a part of
otherwise,
enough of
right?
them.
yeah.
Yes, well, thank you for having me today. I don't know, Chad, if you have the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Well, we want to share the good news that we've reviewed and received the bids for the Government Center Mechanical Upgrades Project. And if you go to the next slide, I wanted to highlight the overview of what's occurred over the last couple of weeks. So we issued the bids out on January 6th. We had a pre-bid meeting on January 18th that was very well attended. We had I want to say 20 plus people there with contractors of all different trades. Addendums 1 through 5 were issued. Those varied in size. We had a lot of really good questions, which meant that contractors were really diving into the drawings. And what that does is it allows us to address any errors or omissions or questions and clarifications within the bid documents. We recently, just this week, compiled all of the items addressed in addendums and put them into a conformed set. That means that anything that was fixed, it had been clouded, It now stays in the drawings and those will be sent to the state for plan review. And then tax exempt, we worked with Chad and Vince, and through our application process, we did realize that we had not called out in the original bid set that this was a tax exempt project because I believe the approval occurred after the drawings were issued for bid. So that was now incorporated as well. So on to the next slide. This is where the highlights I want to point out. You should have an 11 by 17 piece of paper within your packet. And that is called a bid tab. Is that included? I don't know if that was printed. Well, we can get that printed for you later. And actually, why don't we pull it up here? So you can see here, this is a summary of the totals. There we go. And this is the format that we use to facilitate the open bid opening, I guess I should say. And so you can see here, we had 4 bidders, Donler Construction, Everett Construction, Market & Johnson, and Terra. They were all opened at 3 o'clock on February 3rd in alphabetical order. They were all received electronically via email through the county, which was a closed email, and it was not opened until 2:30 on the 3rd. Those were then printed and then opened formally, and they were all put in a sealed envelope. So you can see here the base bid value. What base bid means is that this includes all of the scope for the whole project. You remember that we had many different deduct alternates that gave the county the ability to flex the scope. All of those alternates for deducts were included in the base bid. So if you scroll to the right, Chad, you can see here, there was a replacement of existing windows is in the Health and Human Services building, mechanical, auto HVAC upgrades. That's a lot of controls and VAV work within that existing building. The customer service windows, which we have 5 of in the lobby at various departments. This boardroom finish upgrades and furniture. And then heating, cooling. This was for glycol being added to the system. And then, or an alternate material in lieu of glycol, I believe. And then that's where the base bid ends. So that also includes the re-roof replacement. It includes all ceilings.
Excuse me again,
Yeah.
where does the base bid end at?
The base bid, I was just going through the various duct alternates.
Yep.
But the base bid, if we go back to the PowerPoint, I think it'll be easier to see what those base bid values are. So you can see they were fairly, in our opinion, fairly close, considering the size of the project. Donler being the highest, then Everett being 3rd in the price range, Terra Construction, I'm sorry, Everett being 2nd, Terra being 2nd, Market being the lowest. So they're not in any, order of, they were in the order of alphabetical order in the way that they were opened. So Market & Johnson is the apparent low at $5,843,000. And that includes all of those deduct alternates. So everything in the scope that we were directed to include is in that price.
So my one question is,
Yeah.
what if we didn't want one of the alternates? Are they still low bidder?
They are still low bidder.
If we started moving alternates around, they still were low bidder.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So moving on to the next slide, the other piece that we looked at is if you were to accept the 3 add-ons. Now, we included these certain alternates as adds because they were above and beyond the original scope of the base bid project. And that included some departmental renovations for VA, ADRC, land, water, and UW Extension.
So can you go through those again, exactly
Yeah.
what they are?
Yeah. So, and I do have another presentation.
Oh, that's coming? Okay.
If you want to go through some of that,
I just
let's
wanna
get through the numbers.
Yeah, I just want to go understand what are the add-ons that
Sure.
we're adding and what's the scope of that work?
Sure, let's get to that once we get through these numbers. The add alt number 2 is for the generator upgrade. That being the change from a smaller generator for just some specific life safety and human services needs versus the whole building. So this would be the cost to upgrade the whole building on a generator. And then alternate number 3 was power over Ethernet lighting. It was an option that our electrical engineer threw in, and unfortunately, we did not get a price for that alternate due to timing for the the suppliers did not get the information quick enough from some of their subs, so they were not able to pull the number together. So then you can see the total bid plus those 3 ad alternates. So if you were to accept all of the base bid plus the 3 alternates, which we can go into detail on what those are, Market & Johnson's number still remains low at $6,522,865.
Yeah, so now my question though is, let's say at alternate number 1, we decide not to take, are they still low bid?
Yes.
Okay, so you ran all those scenarios,
Yes.
okay. So we're not gonna have any problem if we don't take all the alternates or the deducts, that we're gonna be awarding a job to not the low bidder.
Right.
Okay,
And we can,
that's fine, I don't need to
find
go
those
into
two
details.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just,
Yep.
I'm good with you saying that, okay.
There was also unit prices included in the bid form, which we can get a copy to everyone. And those are intended for if a change occurs during construction. We've asked for a price for plumbers and electrical, tinners, and then I believe for the ballasted roof system and insulation. So meaning that if a change occurs, we have a base price that they can't fluctuate that price for their labor or materials. So on to the next slide. You can see here a history of throughout the phases of design and bidding, the range of the total project budget. So at 30% design, we were estimating that this project was a $7.7 million project total, all in, including soft costs, permits, move fees, architectural fees, and abatement. 60% design, we were estimating with our consultant law for construction that this was an $8.2 million all in. 100% it was 8.5, and the bids came in very favorably. I think it has a lot to do about the size of the project, your location and proximity to some very, a lot of bidders, and also the bidding climate. It is good to see that things are favorable for this project. So 7.45 million is what we're looking at total project with all soft costs if you were to accept all of the alternates. Obviously realizing the power over Ethernet, we don't have a number, so that is not factored into that price. So after the bids were received, we did analyze the bid values, and we did talk to Market & Johnson on Monday. We reviewed all of the scope. We asked them to verbalize to us what they thought the scope was, if there was any holes or questions. I feel confident that they really analyzed the drawings well. They are very qualified in managing the project and all of the various subs. They did share with us the subcontractor list, but they asked us not to share that at this time because until the bids are awarded by the board, there may be some fluctuations in who those subs might be. But those have been shared with Vince and Mo, that, if someone agrees to keep that quiet, I'm sure it could be shared. Temporary window enclosures and ventilation strategy. There are a lot of questions during the bidding that how are we going to still occupy the building yet facilitate construction and allowing that to make progress. In the alternates, we did include some clarification of the ventilation strategy. Obviously, we still have to be providing fresh air and circulation for the occupants. So we did specify a temporary air handling unit that Market & Johnson clarified that their mechanical contractor has already thought through the timing of when that would be needed. They said it will be around a 2-month time period when the new air handling unit is being installed in the penthouse. And then they also clarified that it is difficult to construct and replace windows on a by floor basis because it's not efficient for their contractors to leave and remobilize that many times. So there will be some temporary enclosures around the windows depending on what time those windows are being replaced. So that's already in their number, which I think is a good thing. It shows they're really thinking about it. And then lastly, we talked a lot about long lead times. They did make a comment that this is a 10-month job being done in 8.5 to 9 months. They said it's still achievable. However, until we start placing those orders for the materials, those things might have to be factored into that final completion date. We did get a request in bidding from a contractor who is not Market & Johnson of extending the completion date. And talking with Mo, we really wanted to hold it to that December 31st, 2022, and we would deal with the items as they come up. for any possible extensions. But you can see here, air handling units, lighting, your electrical and doors are the longer lead items. The intent is that we would request and work with them to get shop drawings issued as soon as possible, as soon as contracts are written and finalized, and we would get those things ordered right away. And then they would work their schedule around that. We did talk to some about phasing as well.
Is there any lead issues anymore on the roof or not?
We are going with expanded polystyrene for the roof, which you already have on the roof. We were able to make a change. Originally, we had it called out as removing all of the existing insulation, which would have increased the price significantly because then you would have been putting all new insulation. But to meet the R value required. In the early phases of design, the county went ahead and got 4 samples. I think it was 6 samples throughout the roof at various locations of what the quality of that insulation was and the thickness. That report says that they did not see any water damage or deterioration of the material. So what we're planning to do is reuse that existing insulation, build up on the top of it. By talking with the contractors, polyiso roof material, it's able to receive a greater insulation factor with less thickness. However, that material is about a year out. So we would not be able to work with that in time with mechanical penetrations and some of the things with the roofing system. So we went with a product being EP.
Sure. So you change roofs.
Yes, we
Okay.
changed insulation. You still have a ballasted roof system.
Right.
You still have a 60 mil, membrane.
That's all fine. I just
Yeah.
wanted to understand.
We were able to
'cause-
work through
through that
the
issue.
concern. Yeah.
So my other question before we leave the budget, so how much money is built? So if you, can you go back one slide, Chad? Or to the dollar amount of, okay, so bid budget, 7.45 million. How much contingency is in that budget?
So we have contingency in Mark & Johnson's estimate, which I need to clarify with them how much they're holding on their own.
You don't know.
I don't know their contingency value yet. We haven't looked at their breakout of their bids.
Okay.
I do know that we're holding about I think it's a 10% contingency for owner contingency, and that's for the owner to use at their discretion for items.
It's like
that-
700,000, you're saying?
I can clarify that for you.
So I'd like those numbers
Sure.
to be part of the, when we go to county board.
Yeah,
We need to make sure we know what those numbers are.
sure. No, that's an important question.
Okay.
Mhm. You want to know what you have, because that money will cover things that come up as walls start being demolished and surprises happen. And the question, I always like to have the conversation with the general contractor of what their expectation is to use their contingency dollars versus owner contingency dollars. Because you don't want any appointing of, you have to pay
Exactly.
for this versus we are. Yeah, we'll definitely clarify that for each one. Moving on, I think we'll jump to schedule. So just a very high level, there's a lot more dates that'll get filled in here, but we are asking, I guess not asking, but it could be that you make a recommendation to the board to approve on February 22nd. The thing to keep in mind is that per the front end contracts and specifications, the contractor only has to hold their bid for 30 days, and that is typical in today's bidding climate. Contractors don't want to hold a number beyond that because the prices are continually changing. Contracts, if the board approves on February 22nd, LHB would write up the AIA agreement between the county and Mark & Johnson, and then contracts could be awarded early March. They would start writing them with all of their subs. Construction would begin, they're telling us April 2022, and then still pushing for that December 31st, 2022 completion date. So realizing as we talk, lead times might affect that final completion. And then next one I think is phasing. Just a reminder, we've been working with Mo and his team on a strategy, and the contractor is aware of this phasing strategy. It was included in the addendum. So ground level would be phase 1 of this building. Phase 2 would be level 1, 3 level 2 on the east side, and 4 level 2 on the west side. We did include a requirement for temporary poly sheet partitions, construction barriers, especially in this hallway, so that customer access can always be maintained to the human services building. And then also on level 2, when one half is under construction and the other is occupied. So that is in their bid as well. So this is where, excuse me, this is where we start to get into some of the scope for those alternates for the various departmental renovations. So ground floor has a renovation of land, water, and UW extension. Level 1 has veteran services and ADRC, and then level 1 government services. Is that correct? Brad?
Level 2 should be now level 1 government services.
Yeah.
That's county clerk. and
Yep,
treasurer. Yeah.
okay. So the purpose was to obviously relocate some departments to level 1 that have a high customer traffic, and also to accommodate accessibility, building security, and wayfinding. So if we move to the next slide, there are some floor plans highlighting where those department renovations are located. Chad, do you mind moving on to, there we go. So the ground floor, you can see in the circle, there's some existing offices that would be demolished and made into an open office area with cubicles. And then some conference room and lab testing area. That's in this plan right here. Here on level 1, human services building, ADRC, you can see that renovation, creating some waiting areas and private offices. This is currently a larger conference room, to creating 3 offices off of that space and then dividing these 2 areas.
So right now, are we on ground floor?
This would be level 1.
So land and water, does that mean zoning is going down to ground
I
floor
don't
too?
know that.
Not zoning. No, land and water, the
They're going down
Derrick
there.
and
Oh,
the
I see.
dam.
So moving on to the next slide, would show level 1 government. The veterans services in the government building would be moving into this location right here.
That's where land and water is now.
Okay,
Right?
so we're really not doing a whole lot in that area, creating a smaller waiting area, separating the department and then adding storage. And then I believe the next slide looks at the generator. The base bid is 125 kilowatt unit. It is located east of the chillers. You can see right here. And it would primarily be used for life safety and human services elements on that generator. The alternate is for an upgrade to a 350 kilowatt size generator. It would be located on the north end of I believe that's north end of human services. And it would cover the whole building. The benefit of that is that if there was ever a power outage within the community, this could be used as a warming house. It also means that this building could be used at all times and never have a shutdown, or which I think Mo said there might have been one recently.
Tell me about the FEMA grants warming, that potential.
Yeah, so I do not have a lot of experience in the FEMA grants for warming facilities. I think Mo said that he could research, but there are grants available that help offset the cost for the larger generator. And I believe it was around $300,000. But I think he would start exploring what those grant opportunities are if it was approved. And it does not cover the chillers. So if there was a power outage in the summer, though it doesn't make sense to size a generator to cover air conditioning for the cost. So it is not sized for generators. And then the next one being power over Ethernet. Hunt Electric, as I just shared, that is the apparent low for the sub for electrical contractor through Martin & Johnson. They are actually working on getting us a price right now on power over Ethernet. You can see is the lights are connected through Cat5 cables to a computer system, similar to what phones are now going to. It means that there would not be power wires pulled to the lighting fixtures. So it's a new level of technology. It will be where the industry is going, but there have not been a lot of them done to date. I know LHB has done 3 of them. So we're working with the subcontractor to clarify what that pricing upgrade will be. So it is an increase in technology and looking forward instead of installing for what's today.
What's LHB's experience been with them in actual operation?
I can ask Nathan Reed to clarify that, and I can bring that back for the 22nd. I have not worked on one myself. I had a client. He's done some ACGC C, I believe, which is a school project. We've done power over Ethernet. So. And then I think that completes, there is, if you remember, there was the existing pretest panel that we had done some research on and what the options would be. From our visual observation, it appears to still be intact, but our recommendation is to hire a third-party consultant to come in, probably like a Braun Engineering, and they would do some sampling and visual observation to ensure that the anchors are all fully intact, which we believe they are. And then our thought is to, we have visited the site, but to have someone else come and we would infill the panel and remove the louver, because that is causing water to infiltrate behind the panel, which has caused some water damage into the wall behind. So that we do not have a price in the bid. We just did not have the time to get the investigation and drawings done, but we could hold an allowance. So I know that I believe the approved funding was 8.2 million. Not that we would need that full difference, but we could set an amount and hold it in the budget to correct and catch that panel if it is determined that it can stay intact.
We haven't approved any funding.
No, okay.
So we approved a
Borrowing.
line of credit,
Okay,
but we haven't approved to say spend it all.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. So I would recommend if it's something we want to address out of this same budget, then we might want to hold some amount when we're thinking about what to
Or
what
your
to
contingency
approve.
money could cover it.
It could, but there's a chance that that could get used for other things. I would hate to
course.
assume that would definitely, it is an option.
Yeah.
All right, I think next steps, we're getting towards the end here. Again, recommendation of the bids would be February 22nd ideally, but it all depends on your thoughts and wanting to move forward. Looking for approval, we can begin drafting AIA agreements if you feel that that's appropriate, not that they would be issued, but just having them ready for if it gets approval. DSPS plan review applications, we met yesterday and those applications should be submitted today or tomorrow, which means that then we get in line with the state for the plan review. And then typically those are 6 to 8 weeks out, which I think we're still within time for the construction start. Shop drawings, submittals, those would be high on our radar to get reviewed as quickly as possible between now and that April start date, and then ordering materials as we discussed. I think that then brings us to any questions. Sounds like some homework that I need to do is clarify contingencies for both Market and Johnson and owner contingency of what we're holding in the budget. And then getting some more information on experience with power over Ethernet. Lighting.
If there's any way of getting information on that potential grant for the generation system.
Sure. And I'll have to ask Mo for his help on that. There was another grant that was applied for PSC Engineering Innovation Grant through the state and federal. That I think is still waiting for approval. It would affect the bid value, however, because it would require Davis-Bacon wages, which are somewhat equivalent to the union wages. And it also has a Buy America requirement. So we've talked with Market and Johnson about the possibility of issuing a request to see what it would cost to switch their products to Buy America. And then you'd have to evaluate if it's worth accepting the grant, which I believe was up to $1 million. LHB did assist with energy modeling for that to show energy savings. There was quite a bit of detailed information if you ever want to request for that to see what some of those energy savings are that are already in the design.
So Chair, I have no problem making a recommendation to take a little bit. We have a relationship with Market and Johnson. They're going to do a fine job. My biggest concern though is, and just almost how it's presumed we've got $8 million to spend on this project. My motion, it would be to approve the low bidder, but I don't know what the process is before I make that. Is when do we decide how much money we're going to use for this? Is that on the agenda?
Well, what I would suggest is, because there's the adds and the deducts, you settle on that and then you come up with your total, what you're saying proceed with.
I'm saying proceed with the whole project.
Okay.
It's under budget. Go with everything you guys have recommended.
So then what we would do, since construction, no bills will start incurring until April or anything, is what I would propose then is in March, whether you want it in resolution format or what, you could, a couple options we talked about is there could be a resolution saying the administrator is only to use up to X number of dollars of borrowed funds, and the remaining is fund balance. The administrator is to use X number of fund balance, and after that, use borrowed.
That's what I want to make sure, but.
I think we would do that in
But
March.
before we approve the bid, we should approve how we're going to pay for it. I don't want to approve a bid and then say, well, next month we'll figure out how to pay for it. I think that just doesn't make sense.
Can that all be done at the board
It
meeting?
can be.
Okay.
So I think if that's where I was gonna say, however you want the motion, I want to make sure if we're gonna approve the bid on this next coming board meeting, that the board has the opportunity to say how much is general fund money and how much is borrowed money.
And I think we could do that. We could, since we've added a cow back to the board, you could do that under cow and give that direction to the administrator in the form of a motion rather than a resolution.
That's fine.
Probably we'll do it in February.
Okay, and then we
Okay.
get it taken care of, and we don't have to talk about it anymore and just see where the board's at.
I think it's important to have some board input even on if we send a recommendation on a general government to approve the whole project. I think it's important that the board gets a shot at some of those adds and deducts as well.
I'm just approving the low bidder.
Right.
And I'm approving that we award the project to Market and Johnson.
So in February, just so I'm clear, since this won't be here, we're gonna do the adds and deducts, and then you'll also give direction of how much of borrowed funds, how much of fund balance.
Correct.
Motion is to go with Market and Johnson, which we need a second for. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That all cleared up we need there?
I will be back on the 22nd.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Next on our agenda is number 9, resolution 07-22. Resolution appropriating ARPA funds to the expansion of broadband in Polk County through local provider matching grant funds. Vince, you're up.
Promise I won't give my whole presentation.
Good.
But as a reminder, I'll leave you the map that was presented. And as you recall, because broadband has been one of our priorities, we wanted to take an opportunity, and this was a swing at it, to really make an impact. And the timing is right. Broadband grants, we've been failing as of late, but as you can see on that map, without giving the specific companies or giving away competitive information to these companies, they don't want me to. But we do have plans, proposals, applications going to fill some of those yellow areas, not all of them, at least a good chunk of them. I can tell you that one that Lakeland did last year or last time that did not get awarded was down in the yellow down by Osceola Farming. So with this, by supporting, and what we found out was that our local internet service providers were basically being disadvantaged because of the commitment that the county, or the lack of commitment that the county was giving. Even though it was good at one point, we were getting past. The resolution you have in your packet is what we've calculated to be something that would be significant enough that we think it would help get approval of the grant applications. And it would also entice these companies to get aggressive going into those areas. It is a total amount up to $1.5 million of ARPA funds. And at a maximum of either 15% of the total cost of the project or $300,000. Most of these projects are in the millions of dollars. You don't think we'll ever get to the 15%. We'll probably hit the $300,000 before we get out. I now have, I think, 4 that I know of applications going in. We also have other projects where they're not going through PSC, but in that map, even in some of the green areas, there are people what we call edging out. They laid some fiber out there, but they didn't go down this street or that street. Now they're going back and edging out. They may come to us and say, can I have some of that grant money too? At the end, it states that if it comes back if someone, the PSC, if it's not a PSC grant, I would look at it, Chad, we would review it, say, how does it compare with our grants? But it would come back before this committee to say, do we want to provide a matching grant to a certain extent for this company to dig into that area?
So you're saying that there's a possibility that there'd be funds available if you're not in the yellow or there's not a grant, but there's a leg that's not extended out, that a company could come to you and say, we don't have a grant, but we're going to lay this fiber down there. It's going to cost us 300 grand. We want you guys to put in 150 or
It would be
30,000
up to 15%.
45,000.
At a max. And we would have flexibility to say, yeah, but we're not going to give you that much.
In those situations, though, that's what you're saying. They would come back to general government.
Come back to you, yeah. And we would review even the PSC grants with you, but I think what's nice about PSC is they vet and it's very competitive.
So you would bring every request for ARPA funds through this process back to general government?
What I would do is put in their grant application, I would write a letter of support saying this is what the county will do. If the PSC grants it, then we are committed to that. But then every grant that comes will say, I'll be reporting to you what grants have been awarded.
Showing us this, so you're gonna set a separate fund
And
away,
why.
and then you're gonna start whacking down this fund, and you're gonna keep general government apprised of this fund.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, the ones that aren't PSC grants, we would come back and say, okay, this company is going into Clam Falls. They're going to be 200 or not 200, 100 homes or something that it could affect. Here's what the total cost is. Here's how much they're chipping in. They want us to chip in this amount.
So how did you arrive at the 1.5 million? So you're basically thinking 300,000 of 5 providers?
Right. Or, yeah, the 5
Or
projects
up to
or
15.
And I think we probably will come in slightly under that. And that's where we said, again, with this committee's approval, we've been speaking with UW Extension. We've been speaking with the PSC Commission in Madison about an educational program, not a marketing, but it's really something to educate people about broadband. Most people say, I'm not going to pay an extra $30 a month for a little bit faster email. But when they see what's going to happen with broadband and how it's going to affect our lives, people will go, oh, now I see why it may be worth it. As you get more people signing up for broadband, you're going to have the internet service providers say, let's go back to this area before somebody else does, run some cable down to these houses, this neighborhood, or this business. So that's the proposal. Now, as in anything, you can do this. And let's say the grant money there, we expect $400 million in applications for grants. There's only 100 million to give out. Let's say that we don't use very much of it. Let's say we've got other things that are happening and we don't need to use that money. Then we can always come back later and say, let's use something else with that
Did
money.
you have to use this money before when? 2026?
Is that what it is, Cliff? I don't
Or ARPA
know.
funds?
ARPA
Oh,
funds,
the ARPA funds,
2020.
yeah.
So if we don't use it by 2026, you guys are gonna have to boogie to find another spot to spend it on if you don't use it all.
Yeah, or we could bring it back to the general fund or put it
So
back.
here's my one comment, okay? We have a workforce housing issue, right?
Yes.
We all know we do. We're not paying contractors to let my business grow because we have a workforce housing problem, right? I'd love to come and get free money from the county to make my business. And these telecommunication companies, they're for profit, right? They're all making money.
Mhm.
Part of me is a little bit is like, it's one thing for grant money that we're really assisting to get grants for big projects. It's another thing to say, it's gonna be hard again to get supervisors voting to run a cable wire in Clam Falls when Osceola needs one, Balsam Lake needs one. And a little worry about us, like, kind of almost like making a private company more successful. That's a
Yeah.
little bit of, it's one thing to make our county, like building our educational system, right? We all want schools. Everyone has to go to school. Be nice that everyone has internet. But I worry the perception is that we're helping out a private company to be more profitable.
Yeah.
How do we get over that hump?
I think part of it is if you look at where the internet service providers are going now, in many cases, they're going in the hole. Now, granted, they're still for the profit, and they hope that over time they will make.
Going in the hole? You know what they pay their board of
Yeah.
directors and their
I know.
CEOs?
Okay,
I would highly doubt that any of them are going in the hole.
I'm talking about a specific project where they may spend so many millions of
I
dollars.
know,
to
but I
through
go in
that.
the hole certain projects.
Right, okay.
But no one's helping me out.
The other thing I'd say though, Chris, is this is something that is an
I know this is the
investment.
elected officials that get these questions.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it.
And this is an investment into the entire county by having that fiber optic cable.
Sure, I get it.
skeleton.
I'm
Okay,
okay.
well, you asked the question.
Oh, I know, but I'm just,
Yeah,
but when, if you say, hey, these guys are losing money,
I didn't mean it like that.
Okay.
Okay. But it is an expensive venture
oh, I'm sure it is.
and,
How do we
and,
get them to do it?
and the other thing is the timing is so important right now.
Sure.
And Cliff.
That's important to
will get
know
up
why
speak
do
too,
we have to
is
go quick?
if we don't get this fiber optic cable now, we'll be pushed back a few years because the race is on. Now, fortunately, many of the internet service providers, ones right here, have stockpiled. They've looked at how much are we going to need in our county, but it will become very competitive for all that stuff.
I know they'll probably tell us this is none of our business. But do we know if they get grant assistance and if the county participates in this? Are any of those savings going to be passed along to their customers, to people who use this?
So they,
Yeah.
one part that's in our resolution and that we've been champions of since we started these conversations with the groups is accessibility. So accessibility is more than just having the fiber by your house. Accessibility is the cost of accessibility. How much does it cost to get on board? So one idea, one principle behind this, and really goes back to free market is, we've got it out here. We look at the grants. They have to, there's federal guidelines about accessibility, but in their grant packages are also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cliff, but as I look through the packages, there's the cost of access and that kind of stuff once their proposals are cost. And as the administrator looks at that, I can tell you from day one, because it's a big priority of mine personally for people is the cost of accessibility. And to answer Chris's question, I think that's one thing that when you're asked as an elected official, we're trying to get not only the utility of broadband to everybody, but also help promulgate more accessible broadband, whether it's cost or whatever. And we look at those
When you bring
things.
that up, so for an example, we have a project on the lake right now, building a cabin for a guy. And from the road where the internet is at right now with the provider, I'm gonna say it's 200 feet to his cabin. Okay. I just got a cost last week because we wrecked the line. We have to pay for it to be fixed. And the provider said it's $1,750 for us to pull a line from the road to the house to replace this line. It'd be the same, he said, if you didn't have that line run there. That's what it costs. Fine, that lake guy's got the money. He just writes a check. But if it's a guy that works for me and he's a $20 an hour employee, for him to pay $1,700 to go 200 feet, and the internet provider's got this map that says, oh, look at this coverage. Look at this, look at how great we are now. But you got 1,000, you got 10,000 people like that out there that then these providers come back and they go, well, and I don't doubt that's their cost. I'm not saying they're making a profit off of it because they hire a contractor from the cities to come in and plow in a new fiber line to your house. But it's on the street. We gave the grant money for that guy to put on the street. Now they go make all their money sticking it into your house. And how's the local guy gonna afford $2,000?
So the administrator touched on the educational promotional piece of it, but also in that resolution is Let me pull up the exact wording.
I would hopefully, I would hope
Let me,
the grant money, if we're gonna give grant money out, that there would be some kind of requirement that it's affordable to hook up.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's
It has to be.
promotional and accessibility initiatives for Polk County residents to include direct to consumer allocations. So for example, your $2,000, you know, does the county come up with some way where a citizen says, I want to connect to the internet, my kid needs it, it's gonna cost 10,000, Polk County gives a direct grant to the consumer of $300 to help offset it.
Yeah, well, like you said too, we had another guy on the lake, quarter mile, probably, it was $6,700 for him to come off the nearest road to get an internet service to his house. And that's what I'm worried about, is us giving grant money out and ARPA funds out to providers to extend this network. And then when they've got our money and that they put all this in, then the guy calling up saying 3 years from now, hey, yeah, great job, county, you got internet out on my road. Thanks for that grant. And everyone, hey, how much does it cost to get it to my house? It's 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now. It's $2,000, it's $3,000, it's $6,000. Did that help him out? I don't know.
you know, let me introduce Cliff Albertson, who's kind of the expert in the area.
Sure.
He can answer many questions, I think, better.
He's got a lot of
about-
money, so he can
about the
probably help me
value.
out, right?
But Cliff is with Badger Communications and he's done work with us up here before.
Sure.
He knows.
I just want to I just want to make sure we're crafty enough, if we're gonna give money out, that our resolution, I haven't read the resolution, that, yeah, that if we're gonna extend it out, I'll support it 100%. As long as when we extend it out, it's affordable for the guy to hook up.
Kind of like AC Power, you know, they build
Yeah.
and then they want to get power there. And that's the same
Well,
type
But
of cost.
one company, you can go in Polk County, and if you have Northwestern supplying you power, you get X amount for free.
Mhm.
You go to our co-op, Polk Pretest, who they kind of want to be like the Xcel Energy of Polk County. They stick it to you.
You know, it's interesting because
So they all do it
You don't have a
different.
choice, by the
If-
way.
You don't have a
if
choice.
their plan is, and I'm generalizing here, Cliff, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but if the provider's plan is to run to a certain area, I found that generally they hook you up to the house, like at my house. Because
First
were
time they
going-
did it, it was free.
Yeah,
But everyone else down your road, Vince, that didn't get it put into their property
so
today,
now it's not,
now they give it
now
to
they
you.
gotta pay, but their property values increased now.
$1,000 by putting internet, I don't know.
Anywhere from 3 to 10%. So that is, it is a concern. And from the service to the building, that's what we call a drop. And that is included with the installation for a certain area, for a certain distance. So there's no charge. When it has to go a longer way, then it's individually and it's built on the pricing in our industry is built on what the cost is.
So you're saying if we give a grant out and we're gonna use ARPA funds for a grant, one of the requirements would be is if you're gonna go into that area, part of the grant and your application is gonna require on that first go around, I get if a guy builds a house 5 years later, he's gonna have to pay for it. But everyone that's in that system right now is gonna get a line run to their house as part of the grant. There's not gonna be any fee.
Well, it depends on what the distance is. You know, if they built a mile in from the road, then the
house-
drop isn't
The house
covered
is sitting there. But that's, and that's where I get back to, when we run water and sewer in the village of Balsam Lake, the first guy we run to is really cheap to give us sewer and water to. The guy at the end of the town, if I had to bid him separately, you couldn't afford it. So everyone's in the pot together. If a guy's a mile off the road and he's lived here and his house is built, that should be part of the project.
And
If we're gonna give free money away, that's what I'm gonna say.
sure, and I see your point there.
Yeah.
You know, you want to take care of the residents.
Well, that's why we're giving them a grant.
Right, and the percentage of the grant though, in what we have is everybody in the United States is trying to build broadband. So the supply chain issues of trying to get it built, especially Polk County, has a fabulous opportunity to go border to border with broadband. And that is going to help in many, many areas. The fact sheets to help, we're in the process of creating these through the West Central WCWRP Regional Planning. And, you know, on what is broadband, and I'm not putting your, I'm getting to your
Oh, no, that's okay.
questions,
I just-
but the chairman of the or the Federal Communications Commission, Mr. Powell, he's retired from that now, but broadband access is the great equalizer, leveling the playing field so that every willing and able person, no matter their station, has access to information and tools necessary to achieve the American dream. So this is the first one that's being created, but then and it's focused on what is broadband. Then there's education, telemedicine, remote workers, economic development, and the importance of workforce development. That's all part of broadband deployment. And individuals, we are trying very hard. The service providers in Polk County, most of the service providers, there's some service providers that haven't been paying attention, and that's the gold area.
CenturyLink.
Yeah, CenturyLink is one. CenturyLink has been sold.
Right.
And so Lumen is taking their property, which is west of the Mississippi, which is the old US West, the big cities, and they're selling everything east. So, and that company will be Apollo, and that's coming in the second half of this year. And we're going to be about as far away as their corporate headquarters is in their whole system. There's some issues with that. So the service providers building out to those areas, they weren't paid attention to by their old service provider or by their existing service provider. And that's CenturyLink, and that's Frontier, and to an extent, it's Charter Spectrum. You know, they have their facilities. So when they go into there, there's a tremendous cost to build into there. So the grants that we're talking about are helpful, 15%, up to $300,000. But I know on some of the grants that are, or the applications that are out there, even with the Public Service Commission, they're going to be, you know, putting in several $1 million of their own on each of these grants to build out. So, and there will be situations where the distance is so far that there has to be some revenue provided to help build to that location. So each one of them make an effort to build. And I know several locations in the past have offered to bring fiber that was declined by property owners. Maybe the house wasn't built yet and whatever. So now when you're going back, you know, they put it in the first time, but they have to go back, then there's.
And that was my question, is like Lakeland, I thought, did it a nice way. A few years ago, they went through our whole area and they said, we're coming through and we're gonna put a drop to each house.
Mhm.
This time, there's no cost to it. It's part of the project. Okay. And my point is if we're gonna give money out of ARPA funds, I would want to say one of the conditions would be is your project needs, fine, build your infrastructure, but make sure you kind of offer, because now it's kind of like we're taking ARPA funds that we could use for the public. We're going to use them for the public. Instead of just allowing these providers to build a infrastructure and then say, oh, everyone that has a driveway off of our infrastructure, you're going to pay to go from here to here. They set their own costs. They use independent contractors, some dig it in themselves. That's a big revenue piece for these companies. I can tell, I see it every day in my work. My point would be is if we're going to give out grant money, I would just like to see that part of the condition is that if you're going to get $300,000 from the county to extend this infrastructure, make sure in the scope of your project that everyone in that infrastructure building is getting that drop today.
discounted for.
No, no cost. Part of the grant money. And you know what? So they wanted to go a mile, now they can only go 3/4 of a mile. Whatever their scope of work is, they can define their scope of work. And if you don't have a house there today, you don't have an address, there's no dwelling there.
Today money.
It's today money. If tomorrow you all of a sudden decide to build a house, and just on the Lakeland system, we do that around here. We build a new house, or we tear down a house, or you change the location, and that internet line ain't, we're putting the house there and it stopped here at the old cabin. Lakeland's charging to bring a new line to that cabin. No problem with that. But to me, I think if we're gonna give grant money out for them to build this system, they have to hook up to whoever, they're gonna get their monthly fees, they're gonna get their revenue.
And I think that makes sense. I'll just say as a business person, I think what we agree on, there needs to be a fiber optic cable going out.
The
there.
highway has to get built, right?
Yeah, and, so.
I
that's
just,
the first
I
thing,
just
'cause if you
don't
do that.
Yeah, I don't want the
then houses
providers
don't
to
have a
come back
chance.
and ding everyone and make all their money on that end.
All of the service providers have a program where they'll put a drop in it, no charge.
No, they don't.
On
I'm just telling you, I've never seen that.
not they have a formula how far they'll go for no charge. If you expand that, then there's a charge.
I don't think so. Every new drop I've had a customer going to Lakeland to add a new drop, there's a cost. If there wasn't a line there and we built a house on this lot, and people say, who do I go to, who do I go to? You go to this power company, you go to this, you go to Lakeland. Lakeland says, oh, I'll come out, I gotta go 100 feet, it's this much, 50 feet, it's this much, 400 feet, 1,000 feet.
I think there's two different questions here in this new construction with these PSC grants.
Yeah,
When that goes in,
yeah.
part of that is a drop is included.
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay, so then.
You know how far the drop is, how many feet is the
Right,
drop?
that's up to each service provider. Each service provider has, and they're all, from my analysis, reasonable. Some are 100 feet, some are 200 feet.
I'm just saying, in the last one that got done in this area, every drop was put in. There was no distance. If you were 50 feet, or if you lived as far as Vince does off the road, you didn't pay nothing to have internet product to your house when it got plowed in. I didn't. And my drop was a 1/4 mile. My drop was, there was no charge.
So their business model was, I'm gonna go run that out to this area.
Then I'm gonna try to get this guy to buy my service.
Right.
And they did.
Right.
And I just think if we're offering grant money, is that possible? If we're gonna give grant money, that we make sure that that's part of the package.
Well, I see your point, but
I don't wanna kill the
let's say it was
deal.
5 miles in.
So that one is 5 miles. The other 15 of them are, that's the problem. I don't know anyone that's got a
Well, if the
5
one's
mile.
5 miles
driveway.
in, the next drops for all those that are along the way are gonna be less.
But it's kind of like,
So we're subsidizing people who are further away. They get a better deal. They get more money. We're subsidizing them because they're further away than people who are shorter,
Right, I don't
a
want,
shorter distance,
no,
and it doesn't cost as much.
no, that's not.
Because
what
that's
I'm saying.
another way to, that
You're-
people may look at.
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's
So, I
advocate,
just
just
think
based
if you
upon
if you had a
seeing
number,
utilities extended, that's another way they might look at it.
Oh,
I think if you had a
exactly.
number that said everyone gets a drop up to 100 feet or up to 200 feet.
Yeah.
And beyond that, there's additional, but it's standardized.
Yeah.
So do you know it's this far?
Well, each service provider has a program when they're building out under these grants, they put a drop in.
I know, but we're talking about our grant. My
But
point,
they're not gonna
Okay.
get your grant unless they get the Public Service Commission grant or because there's
and hopefully
400.
they don't get our grant. I'm just one vote. I hope they don't get our grant if they don't extend the service.
Well,
That's how I see it.
yeah, there's I don't know if you can put a limit. Well, you certainly can. You're the board
Right.
on that, but I don't know. I would not recommend that. I would
I know you
recommend a
wouldn't.
drop.
I know, because you're looking at trying to get these guys to come in here and do it. I get that. I'm looking out for the little guy that can't afford to have a drop. And so what? You built an infrastructure by his house. I can't get internet because it's gonna cost me $2,000. That's what I'm worried about.
I think people also choose to be that far away from the utilities that are available.
I don't know about that.
So in the resolution before you, it actually has all proposals for matching funds presented to the county administrator by local service providers shall be reviewed by the county administrator. And if recommended for funding, must be reviewed and approved by the general government.
That's what I was trying to ask, Vince. Is there any way that you guys could put a little something in the process of approving the grant or you guys signing off on it? That part of the conditions, when you look at it, because I'm just using Lakeland because it's the only company I know, that you could say, that was a great thing for our community when Lakeland went through and did that to everybody. And they extended it, they got grant money. It wasn't all their cash sitting in the bank. However they funded that, I don't know. Or they borrowed it, or however the big boys figure out how money passes amongst their companies. Someone approved to run the highway. And while you're running the highway, that same provider, that contractor's in there plowing all the stuff in. And then they had another smaller crew right behind them, ying, 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 ying.
But so what you're asking for is, I think, an amendment to the resolution that any grant would include from the internet service provider an additional credit for
Whatever to make this thing
Drop that.
successful. I don't care how you write it or how you put it in there, but just somehow that if you guys are gonna get 300 grand from us, whether this even passes our board, I just think that we gotta make sure if you're going by my house, I get the drop as part of the grant.
So I was sketching out an amendment, trying to listen,
Is
and
that not possible?
so
Is that killing the deal?
I added, be it further resolved, all proposals shall be reviewed with a focus on accessibility for consumers. You want something, or I'm just trying to,
That's it.
does that accomplish what you guys are asking for? No?
Doesn't put any teeth to it.
Okay.
Because I think these providers, they can come up with their own little marketing plan in their back room to say, hey, guys, all right, the county says we gotta put in 50-foot or 100-foot drop.
I got a 600-foot driveway.
So you're gonna get 100-foot free.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I thought you meant I gotta get all 600-foot free or else.
No, I'm just saying, I don't want to kill the deal. If that's what it takes to say, what's the average home off of the road?
100-foot
What's an
drop.
average drop?
Yeah, that would work.
Then it's the same
Yeah, I
for
don't have a
everybody.
problem with that. Yeah,
Right.
it's the same for
It's
everyone.
the same for
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody gets treated the same.
See, for my friend, you said, well, you chose to build a quarter mile off the road. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Who would have dreamt that I had to run fiber optic and spend $6,000 to do it 20 years ago?
Things
Lakeland
change.
went right by my house. They didn't run one to me. They ran one to him. They ran one to him. They didn't run one to me. They made a choice not to run one to me because I'm single.
Yeah.
Well, that would sound like some
That's
type
when we
of.
drop. There's nobody else on my road.
Oh, I thought you meant marital status. I'm
No.
sorry. I was gonna say, geez, that's not even legal, is it? Marital
Well, they do
status
anything they
and
want to him, whether it's legal or not.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
I like that. So any grant would need to include some inclusion of drop fee or
Right.
Something.
credit to that.
I think that's brilliant.
I think so
that
too.
works.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, so
Don't say brilliant.
be it further resolved, I'm just trying to work out the amendment. Be it further resolved, all proposals considered for approval shall include a provision for credit for,
And I don't know what that number is or how the drop should be, but
but we just want a credit for line drop between the residents and the main line.
So so it's 100 feet on their private property.
Are we saying 100 feet? Is that the,
Well, whatever it is.
you know, like the power company, and I don't know which one does it. They used to always say that. I think, you know, you get the first X amount of feet for free. Everything after that, you have to pay.
Yeah.
You know, I know power company does it. I think even Polk does it.
so the disadvantage of
Shell
the,
does it.
When I built my house.
I guess the advantage to leaving the language a little more generic on what kind of credit they provide would be you might get a better proposal from a provider than if you say 100 feet, that's all they're gonna propose. But if you leave it a little more, we want to see a credit for the
What if we
provision.
say there's a minimum, with a minimum?
You're probably only gonna get a minimum then.
Okay.
You might have somebody come to you and say, you know, we really want the grant, we're gonna give them 300.
Right. Reasonable, it will include the drop in a reasonable amount of distance.
Well, what's the average?
Well, there, when you're going down with houses on the same road, it's 50 feet.
On a town road, let's say an average house setback on a town road, I mean, Jason's no one here from zoning, but I bet you an average house setback from any road is 100 feet.
And in Paulson Lake, it's 50.
But if you took the average, it could be 150 in the county.
Could be, but 100 feet would be, I mean, that provider, whether he digs 50 feet in or 100 feet in, he's gonna get the same price.
He's unloaded. It don't take any longer to plow another 100 feet.
No.
No,
It's material. He's already there. It's the trucking to get everything there to do it.
the service providers you're working with are all good people. So if you put in a reasonable amount of, include a reasonable drop, they're gonna err on the side of the customer
They want you hooked up.
because they want you hooked up.
Now, you guys can decide what reasonable, maybe if you don't think we should, you guys are the one crafting this. I'm not saying to tell you what the reasonable word should be or the drop number should be.
But
I think there's a craftier way to put it in there.
But we do want, you guys do want some kind of amendment in the resolution.
I would.
So I've got this,
I don't know if anyone else does.
I've got, be it further resolved, all proposals considered for approval shall include the cost of a drop line and a reasonable distance cable run to a structure.
Reasonable distance, pretty vague.
But that's why I'm saying you might get something better than,
Who decides what's reasonable?
well, but that's
We
where,
let the provider decide.
and that's why you get a provider that says there's 100
And
feet.
I know.
The one
The
says
providers
300.
that are putting grants in, they are really good providers. They are they live in the communities, they work in the communities.
They know their cost is
Search
not
for the
much more
community.
once they got the machine there to bury it. Their
Right.
cost is not, they're just materials. So I think you could get by with reasonable.
Allow them to kind of get
Yep.
even more, hey, let's one up.
I'm not
these
big on
guys.
vague either, but I think in this case, it may work to our advantage or to
You
the
may get a better
individual's
proposal.
advantage.
I believe you
'Cause
would.
they're gonna collect the money. They want you hooked up so
They
they get
want
the
you hooked
monthly
up.
fee.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
So Cliff, is that wording, is that industry
Right,
correct wording there?
I don't know about the word cable.
Fiber
Infrastructure.
Yeah,
infrastructure.
if you use the word drop, that covers it.
That's an industry
Everybody-
That's an
standard.
industry standard,
So reasonable distance of run to a structure.
the drop.
I like that.
The Federal Communications Commission, along with the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, has a long-term program now for the low income. They'll provide $30 a month, and the service providers are supporting that. And this is a good plan. States supporting it, the feds are supporting it, because that gets back to that everybody has access. And then there's a Digital Equity Act, and this is what Vince mentioned a little bit before about the education and the adoption. And they're working on this, and what they're trying to do is digital inclusion. Let's not, let's include everybody, and border to border in Polk County, that's important. And then the digital equity, we want everybody to have high-speed broadband, so they're not, have you ever, on upload speeds, if I was a student and I was presenting to my teacher and I'm working from home or, from home, sometimes you end up like that on the video because the upload speed isn't good. And so these providers with fiber have a symmetrical service that you can get, and you have excellent upload and download. The cable TV idea was to download videos. So broadband is upload and download. And that's really important. And we talk about hygiene. This is a smart toilet. And Stanford University is working with that. And what they do is,
Do we need to know?
well, it bowel syndrome, prostate cancer, kidney failure, colonoscopies, you can.
Unless you prefer to get your exam.
That's
So I can do it right at home on my toilet?
Yeah, you get that. And also John Deere's introduced a program. You have so many beautiful lakes and creeks. We got to take care of those. So with broadband, when the tractor is going down the field, it can, by itself, it can look at individual, is it a
You
weed?
sure that's not a
Is it
cat?
plant?
It's called exact apply.
Exactly. And so you're not just taking a helicopter and throwing pesticide or whatever down there. So that's all broadband. And then Vince also mentioned the University of Wisconsin Madison Extension. Broadband with population growth. It's
I don't
positive.
think you have to sell us on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Uh,
We know we need it.
4 to 4 health. So anyway, that is a good thing. This is a map of Wisconsin, pink and yellow, gold area. That's Frontier and that's CenturyLink. They are the 800-pound gorillas, along with AT&T and Charter. So your service providers are local. They're committed. The ones that we met with, and we had a great program with them. So they're the ones that are building out to these other areas to help serve them. So I'd recommend that you
That's John Clapp with the church.
Yeah, right.
pass the resolution and support it, encouraging the Board of Supervisors to approve it. You have a time right now, there's so many, here's Governor Evers, handing out some money on the PSC grants. Everybody is after the money. The supply chain issues are serious. If you get in there now and broadband Polk County border to border, you could be the very first county that is completely border to border. You've got people on your side. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, they're impressed with what Polk County is doing. The Public Service Commission, you created a year ago a broadband map with 20 meg up for students. You took the school district and where's good broadband, where's bad broadband, and the commission has taken that, and that's why today they're saying 100 meg down and 20 meg up is minimum. So you want to stay away from that 25.3 that the FCC is promoting and other companies. That is baloney. You've got to have the good future-proof broadband, and you're on it.
Gotcha.
Polk County is on it.
So my question, Vince, is to you is, the resolution has a dollar amount in it?
Yeah.
How much is the dollar amount?
Total up to 1.5.
How much ARPA funds do we still have left to use?
So presently, I've got that in here. Hold
A
on.
little like 1 point.
So we've got 1,033,667 not designated. And then we receive our second tranche. And they did in the final ruling, I do not have to do a calculation for this year. Any county that received less than $10 million in total ARPA funds is allowed to recover it in its entirety to lost revenue.
We'll have about 3, if we do this, we'll have about 3.25 million left.
Still left if we do this,
Yep.
and is that still has to be used by 2026?
Yeah, and this will be, these grants will
But
be.
the rest of the money, and when is this next? So you're asking us to prove something. We don't have all the money yet, but if tomorrow they said, yeah, we're gonna drain your little grant fund. Let's just say that happened and the money from the government, the rest of the ARPA funds didn't come for some reason. We've overcommitted 400,000. What would happen if for some reason everything fell apart?
One, we'd see if the PSC grants came through,
Sure.
right? And like I said, if we had 4, that's already 1.2 million. That's if all the grants were
Got
up to
approved.
300,000.
Just what if?
Yeah.
Well, and-
it's what, I mean, we could do a variety of things.
But I also have it written, whereas we expect to receive ARPA funding as kind of an out in the event that didn't come in.
Okay, good. That's fine then. Good enough.
So I tried to finish the amendment so that you guys could pass on if you guys are good. I tweaked it a little. Be it further resolved, all provisions considered or all proposals considered for approval shall include the no cost to consumer provision of a reasonable distance of a drop to a structure.
With that.
Somebody
You
make
guys
the
good with
motion
that?
with the
Yeah, I
amendment.
think that's,
Someone needs to make the motion with the amendment.
I'll make the motion with the amendment.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not sure about reasonable, but this will get it to work anyway.
Right,
Good.
yeah, exactly.
Passed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is review and update 2022 committee work plan.
Hold on, let me pull it up real quick.
You have something to do here today, Tanya? This committee?
I'm trying to connect with Ann.
Oh,
Want those samples?
Waiting for you.
oh, gotcha.
Should have made eye contact.
Yeah.
We have anything to update?
No, it all looks correct. I looked at the other day. I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Number 11, identify subject matters for next meeting, March 10th, 2022 at 10 a.m. Fran.
Well, like a status update on the engineering bids for recycling center.
I missed that one.
I would like a status update on the engineering bids on the recycling center.
Is that the RFP? Is it, have we got bids back on it?
Well, I don't know. I would like to find that out.
Oh,
It was my understanding, Chad, it was that the RFPs were done and it was gonna go out for bids.
Yeah, I'm not sure when, most of them out, but we signed off on the RFPs. So I'm not sure what the close date off the top of my head. I can't remember.
Well, just an update on
It is, I would think it would be by next way RFPs.
Anything else? Accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second it.
All those in favor? Adjourn.
Happy birthday,
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, it would have been my
Nice